So, imagine you wake up in some random place, not actually knowing what is going on. You don't have a recollection of what's happened to you or why you ended up in this crazy situation. Most importantly, your life is basically on the line. Imagine how absolutely stressed you must be if something like that happened to you. That's the premise of 999. 9 doors, 9 persons, 9 hours. The first game in the Zero Escape series. I've only recently begun to delve into visual novels recently with the likes of Ace Attorney and the Danganronpa series, games that I've come to recognise as some of my favourites in video games. So naturally, I gravitated towards the Zero Escape series, looking to see what was the fuss behind those games, with its mature story, challenging puzzles, and a central focus on the 9 characters in those games. And oh boy, they say that it is a game where you put your life on the line. However, I should say that you should put your life on the line for this game. I'm going to talk about why 9 doors, 9 persons, and 9 hours is a fantastic game, and why you should play it. And yes, it's a well overdue review. I haven't really put as much time into working on videos recently, so I apologise for that. And without further ado, let's begin. Although I'll be 100% honest here, this isn't my first time with the series technically. I remember playing Virtue's Last Reward, or well, more specifically the demo on the 3DS, with utterly no clue of what the story was about, and naturally, the game just slipped away from my mind not long after. It wasn't until much later on that I picked up the Zero Escape collection, the Nonary games, on the PS4, and recently I've been playing through this game for a good while now. In the case of 999, whilst I've never played the DS version, apparently it has the most differences to the PS4 and PC versions from a quick search on the internet. It's clear that there are compromises made to fit the game onto one screen. The original DS version had both the adventure and novel segments split onto one screen. On the PS4, however, you have to press R1 to switch between adventure and novel mode. It honestly, to me, isn't much of a big deal considering that the entire story is told well in both modes. There isn't any voice acting on the DS version alongside lower quality visuals owing to that console's limitations, but regardless of what version you play, the actual experience of playing 999 is second to none. Also, a quick PSA for people playing on PS5. Originally, this game was flagged as having errors or unexpected emulation issues when the PS5 launched, but that's been fixed since then. It plays exactly how it does on the PS4, so hopefully you don't have to pull off the jet engine from the closet just to play 999. 9 doors, 9 persons and 9 hours are more like 999 because at this point it's just easier to say and the concept is understandable this way, isn't really just your average visual novel. From the beginning of the game, you're dropped into this random room with utterly no way of knowing how you got there, only to just realise, holy shit, this place is sinking. How the hell am I going to get out of this mess? Afterwards, it quickly introduces you to its main style of gameplay. You are stuck in a room with no way of being able to escape unless you solve a range of puzzles. You're left to guess what to do first over time, and I'm honestly going to say this. Don't just click on anything because these puzzles require time and thought to solve, something I quickly realised soon after I began the game. You feel stuck until you get the first clue on how to solve the puzzles through interacting with the fellow characters who are stuck with you along the ship. Add to that, there are items that are integral to solving these puzzles, and not only that, they also form part of the wider story as well. As you're moving towards these escape rooms and finding every little item that you need to solve, the increased emphasis on dialogue and narrative really helps in keeping you engaged in the game. You don't have to worry much when you've collected every item for that specific escape room. From my time playing each escape puzzle, they usually last between 20 minutes to as long as an hour. You might be wondering why I've said as long as an hour, because some of the puzzles can be really time consuming if you aren't properly following the steps to solving them, or some of the hints may not feel as understandable to some players. You aren't just trying to solve a bunch of puzzles for the sake of it, but rather they're a part of what makes 999 such a unique game to begin with. Every escape room in this game is unique, creates a different but tense and suspicious atmosphere, but with the same sense of urgency given the circumstances of the game's story. I'd like to add as well that it also allows for multiple choices in game, Most of them don't do much, but some choices do impact what you do in the story and how it ends for you in the end. I'll explain more about that later on. And now, the story. This is the main part of this game, and what do I think of 999's story and narrative? It's not good. It's actually fantastic! The story hooks you in from the get-go with a cutscene showing a random cruise ship travelling around the middle of nowhere. You're Junpei, a young man who ends up on this ship, wondering why he ended up there, only for the room to be flooded with seawater with barely any chance of escape. After finishing the first escape room, we're introduced to the rest of the characters, each of which are put into the same situation as Junpei. Before long, the tense atmosphere of the story is set into motion when Zero, the main antagonist of the game, introduces the chilling and sinister nonary game to the 9 main characters. So, the rules are simple. The ship has about 9 hours left before it inevitably sinks, given how the game shows this at the beginning, and the only way to escape is by going through a series of numbered doors and solving the puzzles that come along with them. Add to that, you have the Reds and the Deads, which allow Junpei and co to get into those doors and avoid getting killed by a bomb inside their bodies. The most important and symbolic aspect of the nonary game, the digital route, where you need between 3 to 5 people to match the number of that door to cross over by adding up the numbers of the bracelets that the characters are forced to wear. Breaking the rules of the nonary game isn't a happy sight, since every character has ingested the bomb that explodes on impact if they end up doing so. So in that sense, there's tension, fear and suspicion. No one can trust each other in this situation. Without trying to spoil anything, the story evolves as you come across each escape room, learning about key parts of the rooms and what they entail. There's a detailed explanation of scientific theories which, while you may think are confusing at first, serve some greater importance later on. Even certain items trigger a deep conversation between any character who's with you in any escape room. It adds to the tension of the game that any of these conversations happen in the short time frame involved in trying to escape from the sinking ship, only for another character to try and smack down some sense into trying to solve the puzzles. One of the game's strongest aspects is its range of characters, from the old and wise Ace, the blind but sensory Snake, the emotional but upbeat Clover, to the elusive Ninth Man. Every single character has a deep backstory well explained as the game progresses over time. The attention to detail with their pasts and the current situation they're in is displayed brilliantly in this game. Not to mention, it's hard not to be able to relate with every character. Their conversations feel natural, and it's satisfying to see each of their personalities and traits grow as the story progresses. The most important part of the story, as I've mentioned before, is the choice system. You have multiple choices offered to you, but the most impactful ones are the choices you make when you interact with certain characters or which doors you want to select, some of which even hinge on whether you survive or not. It also factors into the replay system. Be prepared to fail this game multiple times towards the end with a couple of bad endings, as that's how the game is supposed to be played. The huge criticism of 999 is how cumbersome the replay system is at points, especially when you have to experience the same dialogue in escape rooms over and over again. But personally, I enjoyed considering the extra rooms that I didn't discover in my first playthrough. Throughout the 15 hours I spent playing 999, I finished the game 3 times before ending up with the game's true ending, which is a solid amount of playtime given how tight the game's length is, the flowchart mechanic, and how you can just speed through parts of the dialogue. The flowchart system, which allows you to play certain events in-game, helped tremendously in saving a huge proportion of time from having to play it over and over again, since I could just select one scene and go straight to the parts of the game that I did not discover. So honestly, I don't mind the replay system. The presentation in 999, all I can say is that the visual style sticks strictly to the limits of DS hardware, and that's not a bad thing because it still scales very well to an HD display. All of the escape rooms look very clean visually at its core, and the animations of every character feel fluid. Overall, there isn't much I can say about this because at 999's core, story and narrative takes center point here, and the music for this game is brilliant. It captures the sense of dread and tension so well, whilst also feeling easy on the ears. So overall, what do I think of 999? aka 9 doors, 9 persons, 9 hours. It's a brilliantly designed game. The escape rooms aren't egregious and are satisfying to explore and solve. The replay value of the game is well worth considering, and above all, the story is told fantastically. I'm not even gonna ramble on a conclusion at this point, just play this game. It's brilliant. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like or subscribe, it'd be really appreciated. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.